Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown, and I see someone hanging around here in the studio.
Hello.
Oh, who are you again? What's your name?
My name is Carl.
Why are you so quiet, Carl? Because people can't hear you.
Because I was unsure of my name.
Okay. My name is Carl?
I was trying to think of something funny and it just didn't happen.
There was no cleverness happening.
I got nothing.
Oh, well. Some days that happens. I ask too much of you, I guess.
Well, it is a bank holiday that we're recording on today.
Yes. And for those who don't know what a bank holiday is, it's a Monday. It's a Monday that people don't go to work. A long weekend.
It's called Labor Day, isn't it? Is
Labor Day here, yep.
Labor Day.
I used to think it had to do with babies. When I was a little kid, I thought Labor Day had to do with babies.
You're hilarious.
I was a dumb child. I was very dumb and creative, but yeah, I wouldn't look into things. I would just assume, oh, that has to do with babies because I've heard the word labor around babies. Anywho, thank goodness for the internet. It makes me look smart. SMRT.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
In the last episode, we explored the origins of Herbert Baumeister and the early days at Fox Hollow Farm, tracing the stories of early disappearances of gay men around Indiana. The disappearances, beginning in the late 1980s and into the 1990s, signaled the start of a wave of heartbreak that swept through Indianapolis's gay community, leaving family and friends stunned and looking for answers. In this episode, we turn our focus to the other lives forever altered by Baumeister's crimes. We'll share what's known about the final days of his other victims. Among them were Jeffrey Allan Jones, Roger Alan Goodlet, Michael Frederick Keirn, Stephen Spurlin Hale, Richard Douglas Hamilton Jr., Johnny Bayer, Alan Wayne Broussard, and Daniel Thomas Halloran, among others yet to be named. As their stories unfold, we'll follow the determined police investigation, the pressure that began to close in on Baumeister, and his frantic flight from justice. This case, originating in quiet Indiana neighborhoods, fades out across the border, coming to a haunting and chilling end here in Canada. You're listening to Dark Poutine episode 386, All That Remains, Fox Hollow Farm, Part 2. As we mentioned, in the late 1980s and 1990s, the routine of Indianapolis's gay nightlife was upended by an unsettling trend. Men started going missing after nights at local bars, leaving the community shaken and families in a state of fear. It wasn't just a rumor. Nightclub owners, regulars, and loved ones were noticing a mounting list of names and faces that never turned up for work or returned home. Jeffrey Allan Jones, known to his friends as Jeff, was 31 and living in Fillmore, Indiana, when he disappeared in July 1993. He was well known within Indianapolis's LGBTQ+ circles, a social regular at the Metro and the 501 Tavern, and had built trusted friendships over years spent in the downtown nightlife. Easygoing and genuine, Jeff's warmth made him popular in the bar scene, and he was often seen out with his friends or acquaintances. Despite his active social life, Jeff made it a point to stay in touch with family and rarely went long without contacting loved ones. When Jeff didn't show up at work and stopped answering calls, his family united in concern. Their fears grew as they learned about other missing men who shared Jeff's routine, vanishing from the very bars where they all felt safest. Knowing the risk, they immediately contacted the police, circulated missing posters, and attempted to gather any information that might lead to Jeff's whereabouts. The anxiety and voices of his family only grew louder as rumors about a possible predator circulated among Indianapolis's gay community. For years, Jeff's fate remained uncertain. His family, like so many others, suffered through seasons of waiting and hoping, never coming close to closure as officials struggled with the difficulties of later identifying remains found at Fox Hollow Farm. Quote, "People were disappearing from the local clubs that were doing business with me," local publisher Jay Fleischicker explained, capturing the anxiety that swept through the social scene as Jeff Jones's name was added to a long list of missing men. Jeffrey Allan Jones's identification was made possible decades later thanks to advances in forensic science. In 2023, Hamilton County Coroner Jeff Jellison and experts from an Indiana university submitted bone fragments recovered from Fox Hollow Farm to Othram for advanced DNA testing. Using forensic-grade genome sequencing and genealogical research, the FBI and Othram scientists developed a DNA profile for the unknown man. This led investigators to potential relatives and ultimately confirmed the remains as those of Jeffrey Allan Jones. The news brought a wave of mixed feelings, both relief and sorrow, for Jeff's family and friends. Quote, "For us it was proof at last," a relative shared, "but that loss never leaves," end quote. Jeff's mother, in interviews with investigators, expressed gratitude for the closure, but mourned the years spent hoping he'd return or be found alive. The confirmation allowed them to remember Jeff by name and honor the generous spirit he brought to the city and those closest to him. Also among the missing was Roger Alan Goodlet, whose absence sent his family into a state of panic and heartbreak. He was also a victim definitively connected to Herb Baumeister through forensic identification of remains recovered at Fox Hollow Farm. Roger was last seen leaving home for a birthday celebration, planning to meet his friends at the city's downtown clubs. He was well known and liked not only at places like the Metro and the 501 Tavern, but also among a wider circle for his reliability and sense of humor. His mother, deeply protective, worried about the dangers her son might face, but never imagined he wouldn't come home. When he vanished without a trace, she quickly enlisted friends and local advocates to search for him, refusing to believe he had disappeared or left by choice. Her insistence and resolve brought Roger's story to the attention of private investigators like Virgil Vandegrift, whose records reflect that, quote, "the fates of these men were too close to ignore," end quote.
That word advocates tells you everything. When somebody from the majority goes missing, families don't need advocates. The system itself does the searching. But when the victim is gay, the family has to become lobbyists for their own grief, building a case just to prove that their son is worth looking for.
It's true. Before his disappearance, Roger lived on his own in Indianapolis, maintaining close connections with his mother and friends. He spent much of his spare time around the city's gay bars, enjoying the companionship and solidarity he found there. His approachable personality drew people in, and he built steady relationships marked by laughter and care. Family and friends described him as trustworthy, social, and the kind of person who prioritized checking in with loved ones even while leading an active and outgoing life. To those who knew him best, Roger embodied the everyday hope and vulnerability of a community seeking safety and a sense of belonging in challenging times. Michael Frederick Keirn was born on February 25, 1949, in Highland Park, Michigan, to Max and Frances Keirn. Mike, as he was known, grew up in the Midwest and later moved to Indianapolis, where he found both work and a welcoming community in the city's gay nightlife. By the mid-1990s, Keirn was 45 and lived independently, often visiting popular bars like the Metro and the 501 Tavern, where he had made friends and found camaraderie with others from the LGBTQ+ community. On March 31, 1995, Mike was last seen leaving a gay bar in downtown Indianapolis. Unlike some of the younger missing men, Keirn was older and had a solid reputation among his acquaintances as someone reliable, a person who checked in with friends and didn't simply disappear without explanation. As the days passed without a word, alarm spread quickly. His family, fearful and frustrated, reached out to those who might have seen him, canvassing bars and appealing to the growing network of residents worried about the number of recent vanishings. Despite these efforts, they received little reassurance and only grew more desperate as time went on. Years later, after remains were uncovered during the Fox Hollow Farm investigation, forensic teams were able to identify Keirn as one of Baumeister's victims. Advances in DNA analysis connected the fragments found on the property to Keirn, finally providing his loved ones a painful answer to the question of what had happened. Stephen Spurlin Hale was born in Indianapolis on November 14, 1967, to Donald Hale and Thelma Spurlin. He grew up in the Indianapolis area and by his late 20s was a regular presence in the city's bar scene. Friends described Stephen as outgoing and energetic, someone who made friends easily and felt at home among the LGBTQ+ community, which found a sense of belonging in Indy's nightlife. He maintained close ties with his immediate family and was well known among his peers for his loyalty and keen sense of humor. Stephen was last seen on April 1, 1994, as he left for a night at a local gay bar, one of many frequented by men who sought companionship and understanding during a time that was often hostile to difference. When he didn't return home, his family was quick to sound the alarm. His parents worried deeply, launching calls to friends and police, scouring every location they thought he might have gone. Like so many families whose loved ones vanished in Indianapolis around that time, the Hales were left facing uncertainty and heartbreak. Their concern never faded, and Stephen's name remained one of the most widely shared among missing persons advocacy groups tied to the Fox Hollow Farm case. Years passed before Stephen Hale's fate was known. Forensic teams matched remains recovered from Fox Hollow Farm to Stephen, confirming him as one of Baumeister's victims. As with others lost to the same killer, the identification brought belated closure, a chance for his family to honor his memory and begin to heal. Richard Douglas Hamilton Jr. was born in Indiana and spent most of his young life in Indianapolis. He was just 20 years old when he disappeared on July 31, 1993. Friends and family described Richard as easygoing and trusting, someone who flourished in the city's lively social circles and was known for connecting with others, particularly in the downtown gay bars, where he was a familiar face. Richard felt at home among his Indianapolis friends, frequently enjoying the vibrant energy of clubs like the Metro, the Varsity Lounge, and the 501 Tavern. The days following Richard's disappearance were devastating for his family. Relatives became increasingly concerned as he failed to check in. His loved ones worked alongside local police and advocates, sharing Richard's story and photo in hopes that someone might come forward with news. Seeking answers, his family navigated the painful uncertainty that became familiar for so many in Indianapolis's LGBTQ+ community during the wave of 1990s vanishings. Years later, Richard was definitively identified as one of Baumeister's victims through DNA analysis and forensic work, after his remains were recovered among those found at Fox Hollow Farm. Johnny Bayer, also known as John Lee Bayer, was born in 1972 and spent most of his young adult life in Indianapolis. Social and adventurous, Johnny was known for his easy connection with people and his regular presence at some of Indianapolis's most popular gay bars, including the Metro and the Varsity Lounge. At just 21, he was forging his own path in the city, eager for independence yet always connected to friends, and found a sense of family within the LGBTQ+ community. Johnny disappeared on May 28, 1993. The days following his absence brought increasing anxiety to those close to him. Friends tried to track down anyone who may have seen him that night, and his family reached out to authorities in hopes of getting help, growing desperate for answers. As word spread, Johnny's name joined the growing list of young men disappearing in and around Indianapolis's gay clubs that year, deepening a sense of fear for both the community and the families left behind. Years later, Johnny Bayer's remains were recovered and identified among the victims at Fox Hollow Farm. Forensic teams working the case used DNA and dental records to confirm his identity, finally giving some measure of closure to his friends and family. Alan Wayne Broussard was born in 1966 and spent most of his life in Indianapolis, where he was recognized for his outgoing personality, reliability, and strong family ties. He had a vast network of friends and was a regular visitor to the city's gay bars, including the Metro and the 501 Tavern. In his late 20s, Alan was living independently but remained close to his family, who constantly worried about his safety, yet knew he valued his community and friendships. Alan disappeared on June 6, 1994. His family became alarmed when he didn't return home or contact them. His absence came during a period when disappearances among young men, especially those who frequented certain Indianapolis bars, were growing more frequent and distressing. Determined not to let Alan's case be ignored, his mother reached out to a private investigator and the local police, but initial progress was slow and agonizing. Years later, remains found on Baumeister's Fox Hollow Farm were identified as Alan Wayne Broussard. Daniel Thomas Halloran was born on May 10, 1972, in Indiana. In his early life, Daniel lived in and around Indianapolis, where he developed connections through family and the local community. Relatives remember Daniel as gentle, creative, and determined to stay in touch with loved ones, even during difficult periods in his life. At the time of his disappearance, Daniel had a young daughter, Coral, and was separated from her mother but kept in sporadic contact and hoped to maintain a relationship despite family struggles. Daniel vanished in the early 1990s, slipping out of touch with friends and family who had already seen many young men go missing in Indianapolis. His disappearance cast a long shadow over his daughter's upbringing and left his family wrestling with years of uncertainty. Coral Halloran grew up believing that her father had abandoned her, but her family always wondered if something far more sinister had occurred. Daniel's mother, now deceased, had hired private investigators and contacted social services for help in locating him, but their efforts ended without answers. Decades later, a combination of forensic DNA analysis and genetic genealogy breakthroughs finally identified Daniel's remains among the thousands found at Fox Hollow Farm. The identification was confirmed in April 2024 with the help of both advanced DNA sequencing and genetic records from his late mother. For Coral, the news brought bittersweet closure. For more than 30 years, I've been grieving the absence of my father. Now, knowing that he was taken from me by the alleged crimes at Fox Hollow Farm is just sickening. Her relief mingled with heartbreak, realizing her father hadn't abandoned her, but was a victim in a string of crimes that defined an era. This breakthrough allowed Daniel to be named among the victims and offered his family a measure of comfort and dignity they had sought for decades. For his loved ones, especially his daughter, it marked the end of a long search and the beginning of truly honoring his memory.
You know, lining up these names like a list can sound clinical, but
I don't know any other way to do it, really.
yeah, but that's my point. Each has a whole world, you know, family, friends, ambitions, flaws, laughter. And hearing them together is less about sort of tallying victims than kind of restoring what was taken, the right to be remembered, as more than evidence tags. And, you know, we try to give a little tiny glimpse into their lives, right? And it's important that, I mean, you made this a two-parter so we can say a little something to the men who have been identified, because it's important, because it's kind of resistance against the erasure, right, that institutions often depend on. Like, everyone will just forget about this, right?
Yeah.
Everyone will just forget about these people because we can't get our shit together.
Yeah. Ugh. It was the summer of 1994, and Indianapolis's LGBTQ+ community was living in fear. Men were disappearing after nights out, last seen at local bars, never heard from again. Families were frantic. Alan Wayne Broussard and Roger Alan Goodlet, both gay, went missing within weeks of each other. Their families refused to accept that they had run away or gone to start new lives elsewhere. They wanted answers and turned for help to private investigator Virgil Vandegrift. Vandegrift got to work immediately, printing missing persons flyers and sending investigators into the gay bars where Alan and Roger had last been seen. He quickly realized the scale of the problem. "We found out real quick that there were a lot of missing people, a lot of missing gay people in Indianapolis or the Indiana area," Vandegrift recalled. The regulars at the bars were afraid, reluctant to talk, but the posters he distributed began to turn up leads. People started to remember seeing unfamiliar faces or cars, and mention of a man who called himself Brian began circulating. One tip came from a man later identified as Mark Goodyear, a survivor whose account would prove pivotal. Mark recounted meeting a reserved man named Brian Smart in a club. Brian paid unusual attention to the missing posters of Roger Goodlet hanging on the wall, and Mark couldn't shake the suspicion that Brian knew about Roger's fate. Accepting an invitation to Brian's house for drinks and a swim, Mark was taken to a large home with a basement pool surrounded by mannequins, an experience both strange and deeply unsettling. While there, Brian became fixated on, quote, choking games during sex. Mark, fearing for his life, feigned unconsciousness to survive. Recounting the ordeal to Vandegrift, Mark described the man and the house in detail, but couldn't remember the exact location, only the neighborhood. For over a year, Vandegrift and his team worked with Mark and others searching for the mysterious Brian Smart. The investigation ran into obstacles. The police showed little interest in missing gay men, witnesses were hard to find, and the clues were scarce. But the break came in August 1995. Mark spotted Brian Smart in another gay bar and, with Vandegrift's urging, managed to note his license plate as he left. That one piece of evidence led investigators straight to Herbert Baumeister, an affluent businessman in nearby Westfield. The discovery led to a massive shift in the investigation. Vandegrift now had a name and a location, and suddenly all the threads began to connect. The missing men, the suburban mansion, the strange pool parties, and Baumeister's Save-A-Lot thrift stores. But even with mounting evidence, legal hurdles remained. Local judges were initially reluctant to grant a search warrant based solely on survivor testimony, despite the risk. Baumeister feigned innocence, denied any knowledge of the missing men, and refused to consent to a search of his property. Vandegrift's persistence, his willingness to listen to survivors, and his unyielding drive to pursue the case helped crack it. He refused to be ignored when official channels stalled and kept fighting for the families of Indianapolis's missing men and their loved ones. But it was Herb Baumeister's family who ultimately led to his unveiling as a serial killer. More after a quick break. All right. And we're back, Matthew. My goodness gracious, at the halfway point.
Yeah. I think, what I'm thinking about is how do I put it, the blast radius of grief here.
Mm-hmm.
Like Fox Hollow isn't just how many men were killed, but how many different kinds of love were broken.
Mm-hmm.
These are sons and brothers and fathers and friends, and every name here represents a web of relationships that was torn apart. And I think serial murder is never just about the victim, but the grief that keeps spreading across decades, really, right? Like these people are still trying to figure it out. And this guy's violence wasn't contained to just this estate. It was like sort of detonated through families and communities.
Yeah.
Right? It's huge. It's absolutely massive, the damage that was done to people.
They're still trying to identify some of this guy's victims. Still. And it's, years later. Multiple years later, like more than 30.
Yep.
Good Lord. In June 1996, the veil of secrecy at Fox Hollow Farm lifted abruptly when Julie, Herb Baumeister's wife, recalled to investigators pressuring for her to allow them to search the property, a chilling discovery made by their son 2 years earlier. While playing outside on the property not far from the house's manicured edges, the boy noticed what looked like bones protruding from a muddy patch of earth. Curious, he unearthed a skull, weathered, discolored, and unmistakably human. He brought it into the house, and Julie was aghast. Julie later recounted that, quote, Eric found a skeleton buried next to the fire pit on our property. He brought it in to me in the garage. I knew right away it was a person's skull, end quote. For months, Herb had dismissed any unusual discoveries and maintained the story that animal bones littered the field, but Julie's instincts told her otherwise. She later explained, Herb told us they were old medical bones from his father's teaching supplies, but there was something wrong about the way he looked at us. I pressed him, but he only got angry, end quote. Julie Baumeister, now in the throes of divorce proceedings and mounting pressure from investigators, finally recognized the gravity of what had been found in 1994. With Herb away, Julie made a decision that would shift the course of the investigation. She contacted her lawyer and alerted authorities. Julie later said, quote, I told them, I think these are people's bones. I just couldn't let it go anymore, end quote. The police arrived, and their initial search confirmed Julie's suspicions. Within days of first setting foot on Fox Hollow Farm, investigators uncovered thousands of additional bones and fragments scattered in the woodlands behind the house. Eric Baumeister's innocent curiosity, coupled with Julie's courage to speak out, exposed the hidden horror that had festered for years in the shade of Fox Hollow Farm. Quote, this discovery was what finally gave us the breakthrough, a detective recalled, and allowed us to begin searching the place for others who'd been lost, end quote.
Yeah, it's weird how a child's curiosity did what years of rumors, missing posters, and survival accounts couldn't. Right. Like institutions had shrugged, people had looked away, but a boy kicking at the dirt uncovered the truth here. Right. And that's not just chance. It's actually, if you look at it, it's failure. You know, the bones weren't even that well hidden if a kid could just kick some dirt, right? They were waiting for somebody to care enough to find them.
Neighborhood kids knew about these bones. It's really, really interesting, this story, just how these men literally didn't matter in some way. It's crazy. Perhaps neighbors didn't want to believe that there were human bones thanks to a serial killer in a suburban neighborhood in the backyards. I mean, how do you reconcile that? With the search at Fox Hollow Farm underway in June 1996, Herb Baumeister's world started to collapse in a matter of days. As police uncovered thousands of burned and shattered bone fragments across the estate, evidence of a staggering tally of lives lost, Herb was no longer at home. Detectives pieced together the timeline from both family statements and Herb's movements during constant divorce negotiations. While Julie led law enforcement to the site of the skull, Herb initially tried to downplay the discovery and continued interacting with Eric, at times bringing him along to the lake house, then returning to Fox Hollow Farm before eventually leaving. Investigators described these days as tense, with Baumeister's behavior growing more erratic. Quote, he acted nervous and agitated, especially when they asked him about the bones, recalled Detective Mary Wilson. The fact that Herb had Eric with him for part of this period was complicating. Detectives tried repeatedly to secure his cooperation, but he oscillated between the lake house and Fox Hollow Farm, dodging direct questions about the bones and failing to provide any plausible explanation. He continued claiming the remains were medical specimens, but Julie and the investigators could see the truth in the mounting evidence. The police and forensic teams spent long hours scouring the woods, bagging burnt and scattered bone fragments, even discovering items like handcuffs and spent shells. Each new find confirmed Julie's suspicions and deepened the investigators' resolve. Quote, we did a walk through the woods, and as I was walking through, I looked down and saw what appeared to be an articulated foot. The bones of the foot were on the ground. There was some shotgun shells found, and a pair of hinged handcuffs, said Detective Carrie Milligan. Julie sought an emergency protective order giving her sole custody of the children. The property was fully turned over to investigators, and Herb then disappeared altogether, leaving his son behind as he left the state. Quote, he was already on the run before the digging at Fox Hollow Farm began, wrote journalist Eve Gregory. What police found during those days was staggering. Over 10,000 bone fragments, many burnt, and the physical evidence of at least 25 victims scattered throughout parts of 2 wooded areas and a clearing to the west of the estate. Neighbors and family members were stunned by the intensity and scope of the investigation. The process was slow and agonizing. Fragments required careful cataloging by forensic experts from the University of Indianapolis who joined police in the painstaking excavation and analysis. As the days passed and Herb remained unreachable, detectives issued a warrant and disseminated alerts. For families of the missing, each development brought hope and anxiety. Quote, "It was proof at last, but that loss never leaves," said one relative, echoing the bittersweet feelings that swept through the local community as identification efforts began. Herb was nowhere to be found, and police had lots of questions for him.
Yeah, I think what stands out is how Julie's decision to finally cut through years of denial happened here, and kind of one act of saying no more finally shifted the story here. And it shows how often the truth only moves forward when somebody closest to the violence actually refuses to protect it. And I think we'd be much better off if people did this more often.
So
and sooner.
In the last episode, you mentioned Julie and her denial. And I wanted to get into this because I'm curious what it is. I mean, you and I can only speculate about what it is because we are not Julie. What is it about spouses of people who are maybe serial killers or turn out to be serial killers sticking their heads in the sand? Is it they don't want to disrupt their own lives? Is it that sort of simple, or is there something more to it?
I don't know. I think in some cases, there are probably many variations of it, Mike, right? In some cases, they might be thinking that the person's up to something, but the furthest thing from their mind would ever be like they're actually a serial killer. Like that's an extreme thing, right?
It definitely is.
Like put yourself in their shoes, right? Like if you were in a relationship and somebody is a serial killer, that'd be the last thing you thought, right? Like maybe she thought, oh, he's just out having sex with guys. Right? Maybe she thought he was just hiding that. Maybe she thought he was brutal and cruel because he was closeted. Maybe she thought he was doing other crimes. Who knows? Right? Yeah. But it's just like when it's this extreme, like it's just like I just think that there's not her specifically, but there's a general denial of that something was going horrible here. Right? There's a general denial from so many people. And I'm not saying that anyone clearly knew. I'm saying sometimes when things look ugly, kind of you look away rather than digging in because maybe you don't want to know the truth.
Right. What followed was a frantic, shadowy flight northward. Investigators believe that Herb spent several days driving through Michigan, restless and paranoid. At some point, he crossed into Canada. Sightings later confirmed that he spent time living out of his car at Pinery Provincial Park near Grand Bend, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Huron. Canadian police, unaware of the full scope of his crimes, did note his presence on July 4th, finding him sleeping in his car with suitcases and a collection of mysterious VHS videotapes, but initially took little action besides asking him to move on. Those videotapes would become a central point of speculation and frustration. Investigators in Indiana and Hamilton County are still searching for them today, suspecting they held critical evidence. Detective Carrie Milligan put it clearly, quote, "I think those tapes Herb had evidence on them. I think he was videotaping his crimes," end quote. Coroner Jeff Jellison echoed the seriousness of this missing physical proof. For families of the victims, the possible loss of direct evidence meant not only delay, but the permanent loss of answers. Quote, "Missing videotapes could prove crucial in solving the mystery behind one of America's most notorious killers," wrote crime reporter Susan Hall in February 2025, noting that the failure to locate or recover these tapes has left investigators unable to resolve crucial details about how the murders unfolded and whether anyone else may have participated alongside Herb. Detectives are haunted by the thought that somewhere, perhaps lost, perhaps destroyed, lies footage directly documenting the final moments of the young men who vanished at Fox Hollow Farm. As the investigation in Indiana ground on desperately, Herb retreated from view. Statements from park visitors and Canadian authorities described him as withdrawn and, quote, living out of his car, deeply distressed but not hostile, end quote. Sometime very soon after his encounter with the police in the park, Herb Baumeister ended his life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a sandy corner of Pinery Provincial Park. He left a 3-page suicide note that referenced only his failing marriage and business woes. No mention appeared of the thousands of human bones just found at Fox Hollow Farm, the victims, the horrors endured, or the tapes. Only a cold, confusing farewell. He wrote that he was, quote, sorry to leave a mess for the park staff, offering no closure to the families or police who had now spent years trying to get answers. His body was found 2 days later, his car parked nearby with scattered belongings inside. The videotapes were gone, of course. Whether left behind, destroyed, or hidden, police never discovered. The lack of direct confession, clear evidence, or explanation in his note was a final insult to those seeking accountability.
Yeah, the tapes are gone, the note's empty.
He doesn't even mention all the bones in his yard.
No, that was his last move, and not just to kill, but to erase, right? So
it's the actions of a narcissist, somebody who doesn't want to address it.
it's the same violence carried out in a different form in a lot of ways, right? Because I think a confession is power, and he, it's giving up power, and he refused to give it. And for the families, that silence was sort of the final act of control that this guy thought he had, right? A way of keeping them in the dark, even as his own story ended. And the cruelty wasn't only the murders, but the denial of truth itself. And this guy was just pathetic and weak.
With psychopaths, we've seen it many, many times, people taking stuff to the grave. I mean, Israel Keyes, Ted Bundy, on and on and on.
And I grew up trampling around the Pinery, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is near my family cottage. Yeah. Pinery, always go to Pinery. I think my brother camps there still occasionally. Yeah, I'm going to tell him to watch for tapes next time he's there.
So watch for, I think he probably just dumped them in a dumpster at a McDonald's or something and forgot about them.
Yeah, and they're just in landfill somewhere. Right?
Do you think the tapes had the evidence on them? I kind of do.
Why else would he have them?
Right. Yeah. After Herb's suicide, the investigation shifted focus. Authorities in Indiana continued their push to name and honor the victims lost at Fox Hollow Farm. Using advanced DNA technology, forensic analysts and coroner Jeff Jellison pressed forward, matching remains to missing persons and offering families long-awaited closure. As of mid-2025, 13 victims have been identified. We have 9,900 remains yet to test, Jellison said. And we had 8 individuals originally identified in the 90s. Since then, my team has identified Alan Livingston. We're sitting on 4 more DNA profiles that we don't have names to yet, so we're at 13 victims, and we're going to identify many, many more people, end quote. For Indiana law enforcement, coroner teams, and victim families, Herb Baumeister's flight and death changed everything. The man who had once seemed an odd suburban fixture became a symbol of horror, someone who buried not only bodies but, in the words of Detective Virgil Vandegrift, the truth itself. Vandegrift later said, I was upset that Mr. Baumeister took his life. I wanted to have my time to talk with him, and I never had the opportunity. The mystery of the missing tapes and Baumeister's motives remains unresolved, a legacy of silence from a killer who eluded justice and denied dignity to his victims until the end. Today, Fox Hollow Farm and Pinery Provincial Park are linked forever in the story of one of Indiana's most disturbing serial murder cases. Investigations and memorials continue, with forensic efforts pushing against time to uncover names from fragments, and families remembering those lost, still seeking every possible answer, no matter how late in coming. A recent docu-series, The Fox Hollow Murders: Playground of a Serial Killer, shines a new light on the chilling crimes at Fox Hollow Farm and the possibility that Herb Baumeister may not have acted alone. The multi-part special, which launched in February 2025 on Hulu, tracks the investigation's return with help from Hamilton County Coroner Jeff Jellison, advanced DNA testing, and fresh interviews. However, it is the question of an accomplice that draws viewers' deepest attention. Central to this debate and to the docuseries is survivor Mark Goodyear, who, for years, was known as Baumeister's only known survivor. In the series, Goodyear emerged from years of anonymity to offer his first on-camera interview. He described meeting Brian, Baumeister's alias, at an Indianapolis gay bar. In police interviews shown in the docuseries, Goodyear claimed, "He put a hose around my neck and tried to strangle me and said, 'You know, sometimes mistakes happen.' Goodyear recounted other violent attempts. 'Brian tried choking me with a belt with a tie,' but said he survived by feigning interest and staying calm enough to be dropped off again in Indianapolis the next morning. What's made Goodyear a lightning rod in this case are his shifting stories and ambiguous connections to Baumeister. Over years of retellings to police, journalists, and filmmakers, Goodyear alternately claimed to have narrowly escaped death and to have known about the murders without witnessing them directly. In the docuseries, he faces the producer's blunt question, "Do you think you were an accomplice?" Goodyear replies, "I'm not involved, and I didn't see anything. But Herb told me things he did to those men." The filmmakers also present Goodyear's text to Jane Gerlach, where he describes Baumeister's disturbing post-murder rituals, such as using a tool to remove victims' teeth and tossing them like Tic Tacs down the hallway. Gerlach shares Goodyear's words, "Herb always smelled of burnt hair." The possibility of missing videotapes also adds another layer to suspicions about an accomplice. Retired detective Carrie Milligan explains, "Those tapes could show everything. Mementos or trinkets are common enough, but tapes are confessions, and if someone else appears in those films, it would change everything." The series makes clear that the lack of actual footage, combined with Goodyear's evolving stories and unchallenged access to Baumeister's circle, leaves open the question of whether Herb Baumeister had help. Filmmaker Jane Gerlach notes, "Goodyear knew things that only someone close to the killer could know. There's a lot that doesn't add up. In exclusive interviews, Goodyear is candid. If more evidence ever came out, we could talk more about it." But he maintains his denial, never wavering when asked if he participated. The renewed investigation prompted by the ABC series has led local authorities and cold case teams to seek fresh tips about possible accomplices. As Coroner Jeff Jellison told the network, the team of law enforcement and forensic specialists working the case remain committed. But with each new profile, more questions are raised, not just about Baumeister, but about who might have helped or known and walked free. While Goodyear has never been charged or convicted, public debate over his involvement is stronger than ever. As several interviewees in the docuseries put it, there are details about what happened at Fox Hollow Farm that only 2 or 3 people could know, and Herb Baumeister is no longer around to answer. Was Herb working alone, or did he have help? To some, the sheer number of victims indicates the possibility of an accomplice, while others believe Herb was simply a voracious predator trying to feed his appetite. Oh boy. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 386, All That Remains, Fox Hollow Farm, Part 2.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
Great, here's our first voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. It's Lacey calling back because somehow I managed to click the 4 button while I was re-listening to my voicemail and send it as an urgent message. Obviously, it is not an urgent message. I do apologize so much, and this is what happened last time. I screwed up the voicemail, and I had to send a second one. Maybe that's why it's been so long since I have been called, have called in. So anyway, just embarrassing myself again. Have a good one.
Lacey's first voicemail is very long, and I think that's why she got cut off. I don't know. Do you want to? Should we play it? Because it's kind of fun.
Play it. You can edit Lacey.
I don't like editing people's voicemails. I always feel like I'm just a bit of a nerd when I edit people's voicemails. So yeah, let's play Lacey's first voicemail just for fun.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. It's Lacey calling from PEI. I haven't called in a little bit, but I've been listening all summer and have loved all the episodes you have put out. I hope your guys' summer is going great as we're into September now, and the cooler air is definitely sweeping across the Maritimes, which is nice to have some fresh air coming through, but I will miss the heat as well. The summer has been great here in PEI. I know some of the other maritime provinces had some wildfires, which is terrifying, but we have so far, knock on wood, been in the clear for that. I'm just calling. I just finished listening to the new Titan episode, and as always, the information and the little bits of facts that, unless you're investigating it, you don't usually find. A little bit of dark humor that I had a chuckle about, and none of it is funny, but this is more on the business side of things. And I was like fingers crossed that you guys weren't going to mention it throughout it, because I wanted to give a call because I haven't called in so long. So it was on TikTok, and I did actually go check myself to make sure I could find it, and I could. So it was within that 2 weeks of the accident occurring, incident, whatever you want to call it. I think it was within the first 4 days. That's what kind of mortified me and made me go, oh my God. But they had posted on their website a new job for the next Titans pilot. So they didn't even wait for literally the dust on the bottom of the ocean to settle before they posted a new position for the next Titan. And to me, it just showed, and it's a philosophy I've gone by for forever. One of my old coworkers said it to me. If you're not happy in your job, like if you disappear or pass away, they're going to post your job within the next 2 weeks of that moment. And this large company who was under such scrutiny literally posted it 4 days after it had happened. Like they didn't even know fully what was going on. I think it was 4 days. I could be wrong. It was in the 2 weeks, though, because it didn't even reach the 2 week mark of the date. Anyway, that was my kind of dark humor about it, and it just shows that is truly what happens. It doesn't matter what happens to you. If you are miserable in a job, definitely leave it, because they aren't going to wait and mourn you if you disappear or pass away. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful September. Can't wait to listen to the upcoming episodes, and go take a shit in your hat from PEI. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Lacey.
That message was long enough. I got up and cut a piece of quiche out of the quiche I made last night. It's in the microwave because I decided I was hungry halfway through the message. Hold on, Mike. I'm going to go get my quiche.
All right. Well, thanks for calling back again, Lacey.
Lacey makes me laugh.
Lacey does make me laugh, too. So, yeah, I do remember what she's talking about. I chose not to put it into the episode because, I don't know. I just thought it was a little... It went against what I was driving at with the episode. But
it's fascinating.
It is
4
fascinating.
days, the bodies aren't even cold.
Well, the bodies are pretty cold.
Yeah, that's true.
But, submersible pilot, marine technician, they have a competitive salary apparently. And
wow.
Yeah, and lots of benefits. And one of the benefits is being crushed to death at 4,000 meters, which is awful. Terrible. Anyway, moving on. Thanks, Lacey. We do have another voicemail.
Hi, this is Stephanie Thibodeau calling from London, Ontario. I just listened to the recent episode, the Spurlin Lake Massacre. My uncle has one of those stickers that you saw, Mike, on his Tesla, because he got it before he knew that that Elon was crazy. Well, we all know that Elon's crazy. Anyway, just wanted to let you know. You guys are awesome. Yeah, so bye.
Thanks, Stephanie. What do you...
I like that last name, Thibodeau. I've always liked that name.
It's a very French-Canadian name, definitely.
It's sort of like an elegant last name.
It's I hear that name a lot in Nova Scotia, Thibodeau. Yeah,
Yep.
it was a very popular name there growing up. However, Stephanie doesn't live in the Maritimes, but in London, Ontario, your stomping grounds, Matthew. What do you think she does there in London?
London?
Yeah.
I think she works at the JLC.
What's the JLC?
The John Labatt Center. I think they've called it Bud Gardens or something now.
Ew.
I know.
And we know Bud White.
It makes me so sad that Labatt's is like the family was from London, Ontario, right? It was the Labatt City. It's where it started.
It's now owned by America.
Bud Light is the Bud's. I think it's Bud Garden, something like that.
Budweiser. You know, my friend James always told a really good joke about what's the difference between, it's not the difference. What's the similarity between American beer and sex in a canoe? It's fucking close to water.
You're hilarious.
No, it's not mine. It's my buddy James. James Horseman. Shout out to you.
Shout out to the Horseman. Is he related to BoJack?
Yeah, I don't believe so. It's Horstman with a T.
Oh,
James.
I love BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched it?
No.
It's so good, Mike.
I probably should watch it. Isn't it?
I think you'll see a lot of yourself in BoJack.
Oh, probably. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. Alrighty, let's move on to Donut Money Donors and Patreon. It looks like we do have a Donut Money donor this week.
Yay.
And that person's name is Andrew Barcham.
Andrew. Shout out to Andrew Barcham.
Barcham, Barcham.
Barcham.
As a retired police officer and now a civilian file manager for a major police service, I am a big fan of the show, and I just wanted to help support your fantastic work in a small way. Some of your episodes have really hit the mark. Some.
I'm sure some haven't.
It's true. Your passion for producing the podcast is an important service to those communities and families affected by horrible crimes. You and Matt make a great team, and your dedicated work should be honored. Well done, gents. Andrew Barcham, Collingwood, Ontario. And
Collingwood.
Collingwood. My friend Lara lives in Collingwood, which is a really small town, so it's kind of funny. So
Collingwood punches above its weight.
Does it really?
Well, it's sort of, everyone goes to Collingwood, sort of like a resort area in a way.
Mm-hmm. I would like to visit one time. Yeah.
I think Andrew Barcham also owns Barcham's Ice Cream.
Barcham Ice Cream?
Yeah.
Okay. I love ice cream. What's your favorite ice cream flavor, Matthew?
Pralines and cream.
Oh, that's nice. That is really nice. I like Tiger Tail.
Of course you do, you East Coaster.
Right?
I almost called you an East Coasterner.
Well, yeah. There's also Moon Mist back there. Have you ever had Moon Mist? That one's really nice, too.
I did some research on it, though.
Of course you did. I was going
to do a cannabis vape flavor like Moon Mist.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Much appreciated for your donut money, and we will go have a donut on you.
Or some Barcham's ice cream.
Or some Barcham's ice cream.
Doesn't it sound like it'd be like a ice cream name? Barcham's.
It does. It very much
Barcham's
does.
Since 1920.
Since 1920. Barcham's ice cream since 1920. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal or interact using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my 2 books are available to order via links on the Dark Poutine website or anywhere fine books are sold. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you gave Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine, so until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
ASMR. Yes.
ASMR.
ASMR. And then, when you go to sleep,
What happens?
you can cuddle with your little teddy bear.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now you're just being creepy.
Bye.